What problems are you dealing with in your life right now?
Do you feel like giving up? Times are hard and you're not strong. Well, I know the answer for you, and it will lead to real truth. Don't look back to yesterday.
Now there are answers.
Tomorrow's on the
Welcome to Live Prayer.
It's waiting there for you.
And welcome to Live Prayer. I'm Bill Keller. Thanks for being with me on this Wednesday night. Good to be back with you after a short 23-hour turnaround. I really pray you had a great day today, and I'm looking forward to our time together tonight. Got a lot to go through tonight. I happen to keep some really strange hours. I try to get 2 days out of every one. I'll explain that theory to you at some point because it's still only 24 hours, but I've figured out how to maybe manipulate the time a little bit to try to get 2 whole days out of 1 day. It's not something I would recommend, but I've been doing it for so many years. I don't know how to live any differently. Having said all that, I happened to catch the ceremonies today from England as they were at that launching pad there across the English Channel, where they were staging all the troops for D-Day, and it was quite an incredible ceremony. I was so glad that I happened to be up to catch most of it. It was very inspiring. 75 years ago, it still is clearly one of the most historically definitive days in the last 100 years, obviously, because of the incredible change to a world that looked like it was totally out of control. I'll tell you, again, I minored in church history, and I really zeroed in and did a lot of study on the church and the church around the world during the 30s and 40s, during the rise of Hitler, during his reign of terror. Very interesting time. And I got to tell you something, probably at no point in time since Christ went to be with the Father, left Mount Olives, probably no other time since it was a world more convinced that the Antichrist was among us. And all I can say is what I said to many people during the time of President Obama, who, again, whether you agree with it or not, whether you think it's racist to say this, whether you think it's horrible to talk about an American president, there was literally a lot of people that pontificated on whether he could be the Antichrist. And I could see why back during the reign of Hitler, people would have thought that. Now, don't forget, the same time you had Hitler, you had Franco in Spain. He was no good guy. You had Benito Mussolini in Italy, another really bad guy. And you had probably a guy that I guess if you compared apples to apples, Joseph Stalin, I put him right the same category as Hitler. Now, Hitler's actions drew literally an entire world into war, whereas Stalin was more or less just a dictator to his people. But bad people. And the church, it wasn't a good time. I got to pull some of my old notes. I've got some boxes somewhere and go through some of that period. But having said all of that, you could see how people would think that Hitler was the Antichrist. But here's, of course, hindsight's 2020. All right, it's like if you watch a football game, 5 minutes after it's over, you can sit there and break down the game. Well, he should have done that. He should have done that. It's easy. It's easy to look back on the events of yesterday in your life, saying, "Well, I should have made that." But we don't get that luxury. We don't get do-overs. So at the time, you could understand. But here is really the guideline. Hitler, while he was, don't forget, the Antichrist is going to rule over a one-world government, a one-world economy, and a one-world religion. The closest Hitler really ever got to any of that was a one-world government. He wasn't even close in that, and really didn't have a structure to even make that happen. He was just literally taking countries by brute force. When the Antichrist comes on the scene, he's not going to have to use brute force. He will have to use guile and all of the incredible gifts from Satan that he's going to possess, but he won't be, taking land with tanks and air bombings, okay? And again, just to be honest, a lot of people have talked. I told people when it came to it, I said, listen, whether you agree with him or not, there's no way he's the Antichrist. Number one, he's not intelligent enough. That's not a knock on his intelligence. It's just true. Again, the Antichrist is going to be an incredibly charismatic person, and he's going to rise up and be able to have a one-world government, a one-world economy, a one-world religion, because he's going to be the one to save the day. In other words, the world is going to be in such chaos, politically, economically, spiritually, that the Antichrist, when he rises on the scene, is going to have answers to the governmental problems, the economic problems, the spiritual problems. It's definitely an interesting time. Of course, in a few hours, if you happen to be up, I think around 5 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. That'd be 4 Central, 3 Mountain, 2 Pacific. I think that's when the events in Normandy are going to take place, 75 years. And we're going to talk a lot more about D-Day tomorrow, which is, of course, D-Day. So tomorrow night's program, I'll talk about that. Anyway, welcome to the program. I'm Bill Keller. This is Live Prayer. Good to have you with me tonight. Of course, we're here live every Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern to midnight. And wherever you are across our great land or in faraway lands, thank you for tuning in tonight. And it's good to have you with me. Of course, this program comes to you as part of the ministries of liveprayer.com, world's largest interactive Christian website. Reach a little over 2.5 million folks every day via the internet. Please check us out online. If you don't get the daily devotional, make sure you stop by and click the resource tab and sign up to get it in your email every morning. Everything on the daily devotional, everything we do on the website, it's free. It's just 20 years of just an incredible amount of content that we've accumulated over 20 years of Frontlines ministry. So that's the website. Also, if you miss a program, want to go back, rewatch a program, we do archive all of the old programs. On the media link on our homepage, click on the Live Prayer TV program. Of course, we stream live every Monday through Friday from 11 to midnight Eastern time on liveprayer.com. That's our main feed. We also simulcast the feed on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, okay? And Roku too. We got a Roku channel that we stream on every night, which gets a good audience. But the Live Prayer Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube pages have all of the old programs there for your on-demand viewing, okay? So that takes care. Also, one thing before I forget, because I won't probably have time at the end of the program. I usually am kind of pushing a little bit at the end. But we ended May with a little bit of a financial shortfall. We're making it up pretty quickly. Hopefully by over the weekend, we'll have it all caught up. If there's anything you can do to help us financially with a gift as we get into this new month, Pray about it. And if you go to the website, there's a donate button. It gives you our address if you want to drop something in the mail. Also a link for a secure credit card donation. So pray about doing that, okay? Let's say a quick word of prayer because I've got a lot of things. You know, it's funny. I had things pretty well put together, and 30 minutes before the program, all of a sudden a bunch of things started popping, and I added a bunch of things, but I can't get to all of them tonight, but we got a lot of ground to cover. So let's pray. Father, thank you for tonight. Thank you for bringing us together here once again, for each person here, not by accident or by coincidence, but by divine appointment. And we thank you for your presence as well. Lord, I lift up my friends tonight, pray for the needs they may have tonight, and ask that you meet each and every one of those needs. Lord, tonight I ask that you not only meet the needs of our friends, but you watch over and protect them and their families. Give them your divine favor. We come tonight with a spirit of thanksgiving for all the many blessings. And Lord, we just now commit this time to you. Use it for your glory. Speak to us. Let us hear from you tonight. Let us know the things you want us to know tonight. And we ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Let me go back and pick up a couple things I want to hit from last night real quick. I didn't get time. Again, we're going to be zipping through a lot of content tonight. So just, strap in, hang with me, okay? Because we're going to, it's going to be like one of those roller coaster rides. We're going to go up and down and around and upside down and everything. Got a lot of ground to cover. UN Human Rights Commission has called the United States a country of torture and extremist hatred. Okay? The UN Human Rights Commission, of course, part of the United Nations, has lambasted the United States as a country of torture and of extremist hatred. Now, what brought this kind of condemnation from this global body? Which, to be real blunt with you, I'm just, and then of course this is just a political observation. It's got nothing to do. They should give everybody 1 month's notice and kick them out of there and turn those buildings into condos or something. May turn it into housing for the homeless. I don't know. UN. I mean, it had a real purpose. Again, at the end of World War II, there, I could see the thinking and the logic behind it. But it is the most anti-Semitic body you could ever imagine. It is literally, we've talked a lot, and we're going to talk a little bit about this tonight too, about the globalists versus the nationalists. You want to talk about the star on the globalist tree, it's the United Nations. It is globalism, okay? Anyway, and to be honest with you, other than the UN troops that are at times deployed in different places around the world, the rest is the UN. It's just, I don't know. Anyway, the reason we're being called a country of torture and extremist hatred is because of our restricting of abortion. Now, again, as any globalist agency, they're totally all down for the slaughter of innocent babies. And President Trump, to his credit, created problems right away because the first thing he did was sign an executive order. It's called the Mexico Accord, which literally prohibits the United States from using taxpayers' dollars to fund abortions around the world. Now, to his credit, George W. Bush had that in place his 8 years. And of course, the very first act President Obama made when he took office was to tear up that executive order and open the spigot so U.S. tax dollars could be used to slaughter innocent babies around the world. You know, it's not bad enough we do it here. We have to export this heinous, barbarism to other countries. So that's what the UN Human Rights Commission thinks of our country's attempts to just slow down a little bit on how many babies we kill every day. It just doesn't seem like that's something anybody should be in disagreement with, do you? 17-year-old girl. I'm not going to go too deep in this, but I can see myself coming back to it at a later date. But let me just hit this from a little bit of a broader perspective. I've always talked to you about the fact that, you know, we have a black cloud hanging over this nation, a culture of death. You know, again, we slaughter 4,000 innocent babies every day. So it was only natural that we would follow the European lead, right? And start slowly implementing killing people at the other end of the spectrum, whether it be doctor-assisted suicide or euthanasia, where people can, you know, do this on their. But I've always told you that once you've got the beginning moments of life, once you're able to start slaughtering people at the beginning moments, and then you start slaughtering people in their later moments, at some point, everything in between becomes fair game. Well, in the Netherlands, which is one of the more progressive countries as far as doctor-assisted suicide and all that, yeah, 17-year-old girl. She was raped as a child. I don't know, and I've been trying to find out. There's been not real deep reporting on this. What kind of counseling, mental health treatment she's had doesn't seem like a lot, but the bottom line is she just viewed her life as unbearable. She was never able to get past that horrific event early in her childhood. And she didn't want to live anymore. And so with the assistance of a physician, she killed herself. All legal. You know, I wrote something in a devotional, in tomorrow's devotional, not about this in particular, just the whole embracing now of euthanasia in this country as Europe has been embracing it in Canada. I've always told you we're just a couple steps behind. And I said, you know, I don't know if you remember back in the 80s, Dr. Death, as he was called, Dr. Jack Kevorkian. He was out of the Detroit, Michigan area. And they tried to get him for years for, you know, assisted murder. They finally got a case that they could finally hit him on, where technically he didn't do something right. And they threw him in prison for, I don't know what it was, 4 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, something like that. And he got out. I just made the comment that really, in all honesty, as we're now embracing doctor-assisted suicide, they really should pardon Dr. Death Kevorkian. They should just pardon him posthumously, really, if they want to be fair. And I'll tell you something else. And I know some people are going to kind of gasp a bit. I think, you know, if they want to be fair, they should, you know, let Kermit Gosnell out of prison. Kermit Gosnell, to refresh your memory, is the late-term abortion doctor from Philadelphia that they made a movie about. How horrific guy. I mean, women were coming there literally on the date of delivery to get the baby killed. It was dirty. Women died. I don't think the health department of Pennsylvania had been there in 20, 30 years. It was like a nightmarish scene when the inspectors came in. I guess it would be similar to when they liberated the death camps at like Auschwitz, right? Just the horror that they encountered. But heck, you've got states now, you know, that have raucous cheers, lighting up buildings to celebrate not just killing babies, but if you try to kill a child that's literally ready to be delivered, and somehow you botch it and the baby's delivered, that's okay. Go ahead and take another whack and make sure you get it this time. I'm not trying to be gross or nasty, but that's literally what's happening in this country, and that's what Gosnell was doing primarily. He's in jail right now. If I was him, I'd be upset. I mean, listen. Don't get in. Don't misunderstand me. He deserves to be in prison, but so do all these other guys too. Matter of fact, I think you should put Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, in prison because he's just legalized all this in New York. So death hangs over. So this 17-year-old girl, with the assistance of a doctor, killed herself. 17. I'm sorry. I don't care what happened in her life. It was a life that was salvageable. And I'm not underestimating or minimizing her pain or any of that in any way. But I do know, just because we deal with a lot of this stuff every day, that people can overcome these type of things. There's going to be scars. There's going to be a lifetime of issues in many cases. But at least they can live a full and productive life. They don't have to just, I'm done, I'm not trying anymore. And you know what? As long as I'm there, where is this? PBS. They just did some kind of a documentary, and a woman in the documentary is on the abortion issue. I told you, I've always dealt with this in the 20 years of LivePrayer and the 15 years of LivePrayer.com. And there are times each year that it kind of bubbles to the surface, usually around January during the Roe v. Wade anniversary and the March for Life. And there's usually one or two other times. But for the most part, the media doesn't even want to talk about this. They don't want to talk about it. And you can understand why, right? They're fine with this. I mean, there's got to be some conscience somewhere. Anyway, PBS had this documentary, and this woman, she said, I was honored to be given the gift of life. And she said that right before she killed her twin babies. And she says, I was honored to be given the gift of life, but the timing was just not right. China, 30-year anniversary of Tiananmen Square. Ever since Xi has become the premier, the head of China, and he pretty much suspended elections. I mean, he was always going to get reelected, but rather than go through the show of an election, he just said, let's not quit wasting our time. I'm going to win anyway. I'm going to make sure I win anyway. So I'm just going to be the leader of China till I die. And ever since that, China has really changed. Early in LivePrayer, let's see, we started in 99. I would say in the early 2000s, 2002 maybe, 2001. We had some people that got LivePrayer in Hong Kong, and they would send us lists of email addresses in China, and 50, 100,000 email addresses, and we would take pretty much a gospel, a presentation of the gospel, have it translated in Chinese, and blast out to all these email addresses in China, in mainland China, we were getting from the guy in Hong Kong. That we probably did that 2-3 times a year for maybe 3 or 4 years. And then the guy couldn't get email addresses anymore. We don't even know what happened to him. And we tried to go back to some of the old ones. They wouldn't get through. I mean, China has got a clamp on their internet, and that was 15 years ago. I mean, today, I mean the government of China, they literally track every single human being. They've got 1.4 billion people in China. Okay, 1.4, and they track pretty much every one of those people. They have to do so much exercise every day. Women at a certain age are pretty much brought together to, it sounds horrible, but to breed children. I mean, it sounds, almost like a farm. I hate to be so disgusting, but it's true because, their one child policy for so many years they were doing that to try to keep their population down. The problem is their population was restricted too much, and they don't have enough people coming up in the next 30, 40, 50 years to fulfill all the daily needs of the country. So now they're taking women who are healthy and young and basically breeding them to have 3, 4, 5, 6 kids to try to catch up. I mean, China is a nightmare. We've talked, of course, about their horrific treatment of Muslims, rounded up 2 million Muslims, put them, in essence, in internment camps. They call them reclassification or reorganization camps or whatever they want to label as. They're internment camps. Of course, we talked extensively about the persecution of Christians. But 30-year anniversary of Tiananmen Square, nobody in China even knows about Tiananmen Square unless they were there. They have literally scrubbed it from any kind of source where people could go to find out about it. And again, they control the internet. I mean, they control what sites you can go to. Live people in China, they could never go to liveprayer.com there. I mean, I know for a fact we're blocked, as are pretty much all Christian sites. And again, they have broken down their monitoring capabilities. I mean, Chinese people wear watches. It basically is the data on that watch goes to the government. They keep track of how much exercise you do, and I mean, it is an unbelievable place to live in terms of literal government supervision of your life 24/7. It's very, very, very unbelievable. A lot of suicide in China, as you can imagine. Working in government is about the only lucrative career people can have, where they can feed their families and whatever. Again, anybody that's in a business or whatever, the government's got their hands in the business. You can't run a major operation in China like Alibaba, Jack Ma. You can't exist unless the government's involved. So in essence, they have their chosen people that they are allowing to make some significant income, whether it be real estate or energy or internet or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's almost like a mafia structure where the government gets their kick out of everything. A really harsh place to live, I guess, is probably the easiest way to determine it. I just want to give you a little bit of that flavor and understanding that type of control on the populace. Obviously, it enables them to pretty much snuff out any kind of activities that they don't agree with or don't want going on, such as church services, right? I mean, I know we talk about the persecution of our Christian brothers and sisters there, but I probably haven't done a very good job of giving you the context for how that occurs. It is a 24/7 surveillance situation for 1.4 billion people. And I told you, one way God is getting Chinese people saved is they are making big inroads into African countries, some South American countries. What they're doing is they're going to some of these poor countries and loaning them money. But they're loaning them, sorry, but the mob analogy is just too perfect. It's like the mob. You go borrow money. I need 10. Well, you know what? Why don't you take 20? Oh, okay, I'll take 20. But you can't pay back 20. So now you're paying, interest every week, right? They're giving these African countries money and whatever, and they're basically using the country's resources as collateral, whatever those resources may be, diamonds, other minerals, oil, whatever. And of course, they give them more money than they should. In a lot of those places, the money gets, sucked up by the government, the people in charge, and they can't pay their bills. So now China's moving. Anyway, I say all that to say, so you've got a lot of Chinese people that are, traveling in various parts of the world, doing business, and in a lot of these places, Christianity is wide open. So a lot of Chinese are being exposed to Christianity outside of China, in the midst of their work with the government, with companies that the government supports. I guess that's the best way. There's no such thing as private companies in China. There's a Bradley Manning documentary coming on soon, which I think it's HBO. I mean, I got to be honest with you. I don't know why he and this Edward Snowden haven't been executed for treason. Seriously. And of course, this is going to be a very sympathetic piece. And just remember, I don't care what name he calls himself, and he is a he. He's not a she. God created him a male. He was born a male. He is a male. He will always be a male. He will die a male. And that is just a fact. And I don't care what name he calls himself. I don't care what kind of makeup he uses. I don't care what kind of surgeries he might have. That's all well and good. Does not change the fact Bradley Manning is a biological male, was born a biological male, is a biological male, always will be a biological male, will die a biological male. And I just refuse to play this whole, gender identification garbage. Although I'll tell you what, I think I told you a couple months, but maybe a month or so ago, you have a father in Canada. Don't forget, we're right by in Canada. He got fined $55,000 for misgendering his son. In other words, he's got a boy, a male, that has mental health issues and thinks he's a girl. And when the father refused to use female pronouns in addressing his son, the government's hit him with a $55,000 fine. This is no joke. I've told you before, Twitter and these social medias, Twitter especially, they're the worst. They can literally shut down your account for abuse. And in their abuse, in their lineup of what constitutes abuse, misgendering is considered abuse. Let me just get this whole big tech thing off one more time. I know I've talked about it. I'm still not ready to go too deep into it, but just know this, that they are in an all-out purge right now of conservative speech, conservative political speech, and for good measure, they're lopping off a lot of Christian speech, and primarily it's Christians that speak out on the spiritual issues of the day that happen to overlap into the political world, such as abortion, the immigration issue, obviously this whole gender thing, people who choose to engage in perverted sex with people of the same sex, the perversion of God's holy institution of marriage. If you're talking about any of those issues, while you may be addressing them from a biblical standpoint, the fact is they're considered also political issues, and they will shut you down for taking a biblical stand on an issue like that. Now, do you see why I always talk about how Satan's not afraid of probably 90, man, I'm going to get in trouble. Won't be the first time. Probably 98% of the churches out there, Satan doesn't worry about them at all. And you know what? Those 98%, not only does Satan not worry about them, nobody else worries about them either. Because they hide behind their four walls. They make sure they're politically correct. You know, they won't tell people the truth because they don't want to offend people. So you'll never have to worry about, a gutless wonder like Osteen or some of these people. They'll never have to worry about any of this stuff because they don't go there anyway. You know, they just spew their fluff. And of course, the prosperity pimps, they're not going to do anything. Isn't it funny how I always tell you about how, the major ministries refuse to go near the secular media? And we just talked about this, I think Monday night. Ken Copeland got tracked down by Inside Edition. The reason he got tracked down was Tyler Perry, I don't know where he is faith-wise. I hear he's a Christian, whatever. But, he's a big-time Hollywood producer and executive and actor and all that. Apparently, Copeland bought one of Tyler Perry's old planes. When I say old plane, I mean, they cost like $30-40 million. And that's only one of many of Copeland's planes. But inside, and it was a train wreck. Copeland freaked out. That's why these guys don't go near the media. They just want to do their hustle on TBN and your various networks. They, send out their monthly mailings, spew their prosperity scriptures, take it out of context. Focus only on people that are already Christians because it's not good business to talk to people who aren't Christians because, they'll be like Inside Edition. They just think you're a scam artist. Wonder why they think that, by the way. Having 5-6 private jets wouldn't have anything to do with that, would it? But Copeland, that's the point I've been making all along. They don't want anything to do with the secular media. Because the first thing the secular media is going to ask, and rightly so, how come you got 5 private jets? How come you just bought a $30 million plane from Tyler Perry? You're a preacher. What's that got to do with preaching? How come TD Jakes? How come you've got 7 Bentleys? Whew. Gay suicide on the rise. What a shock, right? What a shock. Who could have known that? How many, I've talked to you a lot. If you've read my devotionals for any period of time, watch this program any period of time, I've always talked to you about the thing that upsets me as much as anything is the cultural glorification of this type of sexual perversion and the fact that they never tell people the other side of that issue. They show the parades and the frolicking and everybody's happy. They don't show the people who are still dying from AIDS, though not as many, or people that have other kinds of sexually transmitted diseases, or people who are just, living a nightmare because they know that's not a way to live. And yes, suicide rates amongst people who are part of that sexually perverse community is exponentially higher than in the heterosexual community. And of course, every time I end up, in some sort of a debate, George Takei, I don't know if you know who he is. He was on Star Trek years ago. I was involved in a bunch of back and forth on Howard Stern's show with Takei about, and again, because I've done it so many times, I know what they're going to say before they even say it. They always throw out, well, the reason the suicide rate amongst the gay community is because of people like you, Keller. You beat them over the head. You call them sinners. You demean them. You tell them they're going to hell. You're the reason people kill themselves, which is total garbage and nonsense. But again, I don't know why anybody's surprised with this. I've been dealing with this obviously for 20 years now. Millions and millions and millions of men and women. And I've always known that. It's a fact that the suicide rate amongst people that are in that sexually perverse community is much higher. And it's not because people like Bill Keller call it a sin. And the fact is, I'm not the one who called it a sin. I'm just telling you what God says in His Word. God's the one who calls it a sin, not me. We've talked a lot about the LA homeless thing, and we've talked about this rising population. They just came out really with the first fairly concrete number that I felt comfortable to even relay, and it's right around 60,000. 60. That's bigger than a bunch of towns around the country. 60,000. That's the homeless population right now in LA. And again, it's a combination of economic challenges, poverty, obviously, that'll make you homeless if you can't afford to, pay rent or a mortgage. And of course, we've talked at length about the mental health aspect of that whole issue. But I've been keeping my eyes out for some better sourced data, and some of it's now starting to come out. I still haven't seen anything in San Francisco, but I got to believe they're probably in that same ballpark. Yeah, but LA, Gavin Newsom, the governor, used to be the mayor of San Francisco, now the governor of California. He's so worried about making California a sanctuary state and protecting illegals and all that nonsense. Why doesn't he sit down and figure out how to deal with this issue? And don't forget what I told you the other night. And again, I know this to be true from all of the research I've done on this issue and people out in some of these cities that work with these communities that I know personally. Years ago, a lot of people, they were thankful for, some help, and most really did want to try to get their life back together. They didn't want to live like that. That's not the case now. And I've had several people I've been very close with for years, again, that work in that world, that have told me that the biggest change that they've seen over the years is exactly what I just shared with you now. The fact that in the past, it was a lot of the effort was working to help people get reestablished and kind of get back in the game, get back on track of a normal lifestyle, secure place to live and some sort of employment, so you can keep things going and start building your life up again. They said the vast majority of this current era of people in this, they have no desire. They refuse to go to shelters. They refuse any kind of help as far as trying to get back on their feet. They have no desire to work. Granted, a lot of them are just so lost in their drug addiction now, they're incapable of anything, really. And obviously, again, the financial difficulties play a part of this, but the mental health issue or component of this is very real. About 60,000. That's something really. Let me expose a fake fact. Okay, a fake fact. And I've heard this so many times. It wasn't jiving with what we see. Like I said, we ought to go in the polling business, because with a sampling of 40,000, approximately 40,000 people every day, 7 days a week. Most polling companies, a lot of them will, extrapolate from a sample size of 200 people, 50 people in some cases, It's no wonder a lot of polling is so, off. But something that I hear all the time, primarily in Christian media or on sites that, basically share Christian news. I've been hearing for so long about the fact that, the younger generation is predominantly pro-life. That's not true. That is not true. That's just a lie. So I'm sorry, it's not. Because again, that's another issue. I've been really drilling down on legitimate sources, people that do fairly legitimate polling or more in-depth studies. It is a lie that the younger generation, even those who don't go to church, are more pro-life. They're not. They are totally, listen, this generation that's coming up now, 20 and under. This is this is the black cloud of death generation. They are growing up in a world where killing babies is just, it's just, hey, what that girl say? Her twins, it was an inconvenient time. Okay. And because it's promoted in the culture, it's no big deal. They're fine with that. They don't go to church. They don't have any kind of faith background. So they're fine with abortion. They're fine with gay marriage. They're fine with perverse sexual sins. They're fine with people not being happy in life and wanting to kill themselves. This newest generation is literally a generation that is growing up 100% under this black cloud of death. So, in your travels, if you hear this touted, which I hear all the time, and how the young generation, even those that don't go to church, are really on the pro-life band, that is not true. Now, thank God there's a good chunk of young adults that are pro-life. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying it's probably the best numbers I'm getting, 75-25. 25 pro-life, 75 pro-abortion in that generation. I don't know. I had to go through this whole thing a couple times just because I wasn't real comfortable with it. You now almost have, and I shouldn't be surprised. I'm disappointed. Maybe I'm sad. You have almost as many people who claim to believe in God. It's a slightly higher number than the people that believe in aliens. And listen, I'm not going to get in a UFO conversation. If they're out there, God made them because God made everything. It's just an issue that I really just am not that interested in. Maybe, I should be, I'm not. A lot of people are, of course. And you've got almost as many people who don't believe in God but believe in aliens as people who believe in God right now. And again, these are all byproducts of of a culture that has done everything it could to remove God from the public square. Again, better percentage of two full generations growing up without any kind of church or faith background. So these kind of statistics really shouldn't be shocking to anybody. There was an interview with again, this is the month that people celebrate Gay Pride, June, and I saw an in-depth interview with a Muslim up in Canada, and the Muslim population is much more. It's a much higher percentage in Canada than it is here. I told you here it's 2%, maybe tops. Canada, it's probably more 5-7%. I mean, it's getting up there. And they were interviewing this Muslim man about gay pride. He said Sharia's coming to Canada, and we will execute all people who engage in this kind of perversion. Again, I find it somewhat ironic that in the political wars, you pretty much have Muslims, the false religion of Islam, and the LGBTQ community on the same side, all part of that religion of social justice. And it's amazing to see people, blatant, open people who are proud that they choose to engage in perverted sex with people of the same sex. Don Lemon, Rachel Maddow, there's a whole list of them. They're all very sympathetic to Muslims, all very sympathetic to Islam, defenders of people like Omar from Minnesota, Talib from Michigan, right? Yet, if the Muslims, Omar would chop off Maddow's head in 5 seconds if she could get away with it. If this was a Sharia compliant country, and there would be no Don Lemon and Maddow would be the first two they throw off high buildings. That's another way the Muslims execute people who engage in that type of sexual perversion. They take them to the top of tall buildings and push them off. Tie their hands behind their back and push them off. Hey, like I said, the only thing I can ever give credit to the Muslim population for is their honesty. They don't lie. If you're not Muslim, we're going to kill you. All right, I'm going to hold this till tomorrow because I don't want to start down this road. I really need a little more time for that. And I need time for both of those. Tomorrow night, I'm going to talk about Biden a little bit. A lot of issues with him, especially in the life area. Here you go, another, great Catholic that has no problem with killing babies. I'm going to talk a little bit tomorrow night about the whole scandal that took place in trying to keep President Trump from becoming president. And again, I don't like teasing things the night before, but I see I see violence coming to the streets over this. I really do. We'll talk more about it tomorrow, but I see violence coming. And a little bit on immigration tomorrow. Okay, good program. A lot of stuff. Hey, please don't forget to do me a favor and make sure you tell others about the program, all right? And again, the reason we record every program, I understand 11 to midnight isn't a convenient time for probably most people. But for those who can watch us live, that's great. But anybody can watch us anytime on demand on your phone, your tablet, your computer, your TV, your sunglasses, however you are able to watch stuff on demand, all right? So whatever kind of device you have, it's good to go. Listen, before we leave tonight, if you've never made a decision for Jesus, let me give you that opportunity right now, because at the end of the day, we will all take our last breath, and at that moment, all that matters is, do you know Jesus? Pray with me. Dear Lord, tonight I come to you confessing my sins, asking your forgiveness. Lord, tonight I repent, I turn from my sins, I turn to you. Oh God, tonight I believe in my heart and confess with my mouth that Jesus Christ is my Lord, my Savior, my Redeemer. My life belongs to you. Use me for your glory. From this moment forward, I will live for you. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. If you made that commitment, the Bible says you're saved not because you said some words, because your faith. I have a book to send you. Won't cost you anything. Just drop me an email. Let me know you made that decision. I'll shoot it out to you. I'll pay the postage. Won't cost you a dime. Also, if you need prayer for anything, please don't forget to email me, bkellerliveprayer.com. There it is on the screen, and I will more than happy to respond to you. Again, thank you for all the kind emails, and thank you for the not kind emails. I pray for you too, believe it or not. And because it's no accident you're watching. God has you watching for a reason, even if you don't know it yet. Also, pray about hitting the website when you sign off tonight before you go to bed, and pray about helping me with a gift so we can clear up the little bit we still have from May, okay? Listen, love and care about you so much. Have a great evening, what's left of it. Get a good night's sleep. Have a blessed day tomorrow, Lord willing. 23 short hours, we will be back together, all right? God bless you. Have a great night. Thank you very much.
What problems are you dealing with in your life right now?
Do you feel like giving up? Times are hard.